Hey, I'm Leon, and I've been a photographer since the 90s. In 2004, I focused all my efforts on the editing side of the business, and I have raised teams of editors to serve wedding, portrait, and commercial photographers, as well as serving creative ad agencies. My editors often edit more weddings in 1 week than most photographers shoot in an entire year. Obviously, efficiency, consistency, and high quality editing are super important. I want to share with you today some tips that will help the average photographer understand how to get every image to its best potential. In this video, I'm going to share a foundational approach to editing images that I would teach to every editor who has ever worked for me. No matter what their experience, they would always be brought through this curriculum so that we can all be on the same page and achieve consistent, measurable results. Obviously, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully it gives you a good starting point to getting better results in Lightroom. Now, I like to use the analogy of building a home. When we build a home, our first goal, our first thing to tackle is not what rug are we going to use? How are we going to furnish this home? Those aren't the first questions that we answer when we're actually going to build a home. And I like to think of image editing in a similar way. If we don't start with a strong foundation, all of those other things don't matter at all. If we start with a shaky foundation, then it doesn't matter what color we paint the walls or how we furnish it. It's not going to stand the test of time. So with image editing, I like to work with 4 foundational walls so that we can achieve the best results. What I like to focus on with image editing are 4 points, which are the white point, the black point, the midtones, and the white balance. Okay, those are the 4 things that we're going to focus on every time we go to edit an image. And one of the tools that we're going to use to evaluate these 4 things is the histogram. Using these 4 things and the histogram together is going to give us powerful results. Okay, there are a lot of things that you can do with this basic understanding of these 4 things to edit, in addition to understanding how to read the histogram. Now, I want to be clear that even if you're using AI or presets, understanding these 4 things and the histogram together only empower you more. They help you understand how to achieve the results that you want, even if you're using AI or presets. Because even when you're using presets or AI, things are going to be 100% all the time. And the real dissonance that we have as photographers using these types of tools is, how do I get it from where it is now to where I see it in my head? And using these 4 things and understanding the histogram are going to help you get there much faster. So let's take a look at the histogram really quick. I've seen a lot of people misunderstand what the histogram really is. I want to give you a basic understanding of what it is. First of all, it's not supposed to be the same for every image. I've heard some people say that it should be a perfect bell curve every time, and that's absolute nonsense. The histogram is just a graphical representation of what your image has in it. So think of it as a bar chart. Over on the left-hand side, you have 0, and over on the right-hand side, you have 255. 0 represents pure black. 255 represents pure white. So it's just a graphical representation of what's in your image. In practice, let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is the same histogram I just showed you. It's the same one. And in this image, we have a lot of darker pixels in the image. We have some brighter pixels, the skin tone and the dress, which are represented here. But by percentage, we have most of the pixels in the image in the darker shadows kind of area of the histogram. The next image was shot at a concert. It makes no sense for this histogram to show us a bell curve, right? Because clearly everything in this image is mostly all black. It's stage lighting. And so it makes sense that everything is slanted more heavily towards the 0 side of the histogram. Let's take a look at a white garment. Most all of this image is going to be in the whites and highlights section of the histogram. Very, very little of it is in the shadows. So that's what the histogram is. It's just a graphical representation of your image. And by understanding how to read the histogram and use those 4 fundamental tools, I believe that you're going to get much, much better results on every image that you edit. So let's go into Lightroom. Let's go to a sort of common scenario of a wedding. Now, these are sample images that I've used with permission from one of my clients, and it just kind of gives us a good cross-section of all the different types of situations that we see in editing a wedding. I want to focus first on this one portrait. Now, again, we're going to walk through those 4 fundamental walls of our foundation to give us a good end result. When evaluating those 4 fundamental aspects of an image, we need to first identify what needs the most work. And that's going to be the thing that we touch first in Lightroom. So in the Develop module, I'm looking at this image, and the thing that needs the most work on this image is the midtones. And we can see here the midtones are a big part of this image. The subjects here are a little dark, a little underexposed. I'm going to edit this image for true to life. If you're using presets or some other stylized type of editing, it's going to look a little different. But remember, we're just working with the fundamentals here. Our 4 fundamentals, again, are the white point, the black point, the midtones, and the white balance. In this case, I'm going to identify that the midtones are the thing that need the most work right off the bat. So I'm going to I can go to the histogram and just click and drag, or of course, just adjust the exposure. I only mention this because if you kind of forget what some of these sliders are, it's just an easy way to remind yourself. If you hover over the middle section of your histogram, it shows you that that is the exposure slider. So when you click and drag here, you can pull this up, or of course you can pull the exposure slider up to a reasonable amount where it looks true to life. Obviously, this is the subjective part of editing, but I'm looking for true to life as this would look if I were standing there in this scene personally. So that looks about right to me. Now, the second thing that I want to adjust on this image is the blacks. If you look at the histogram here, you're going to see that the blacks, there's a little gap between the histogram curve and the wall. So this is telling us that there's no black point in this image. I like to adjust the blacks by holding the Option key on the keyboard. So when you hold the Option key, it gives you a white overlay, and it starts to show you when you're clipping parts of the image. That's all this is. Now I just want to make sure that I'm touching the edge of the histogram. I just want to establish a black point. I don't need to go all the way extreme here, because what happens? We lose detail. We don't want to lose the detail here. We want everything to look true to life, and so we're just going to touch that edge of the histogram. We're starting to see black pixels here in this little vent or grate or light cover, and that's fine. I'm not trying to retain a lot of detail there. One thing I need to fix really quick, it's just kind of bugging me. There we go. So we've adjusted the exposure, the midtones. We've adjusted and set our black point. Now I want to deal with the white point. This image has the brightest light source in our universe. And so I'm going to adjust the whites, but I'm not super concerned with retaining any detail there. I'm a little bit concerned about the wall here. I'm just going to make sure that the wall doesn't look too blown out. But we don't need a lot of work there. I'm not going to deal with much there. The white balance now, I'm just going to warm it up a little bit. Now, we're not just done there. We don't just say like, okay, white point, black point, midtones, and white balance, and we're done. We might need to go back and adjust the midtones again. We might need to go back and adjust the white balance, because sometimes when we edit one of these 4, it affects the way one of those elements ends up. And so we need to have that balance of being able to identify those 4 elements, but then also go back and adjust them as needed. Now, reminder, once we've established our foundation, we can go back and refine things even further. We can add those extra layers of editing that make it even more refined. Again, just like once we've built our home and we can identify how many rooms we've got, how many bathrooms we've got, and how we're going to furnish the place, we're doing the same thing with our image editing. So I'm going to adjust exposure again. And to me, the contrast is looking a little wonky here on the groom's face. I might use the dehaze just a little bit. I might use the clarity just a little bit. And that's a basic starting point for this image. So this is looking much, much better than our before, right? We've got a much more true to life exposure for our midtones. We've adjusted the white points and made sure that we're not clipping too much. Now, this is the point where we could go in and do selective editing and masking and all of those types of things. But again, we're just looking at the foundation in this video. Let's take a look at another image where we've got a different problem. Let's take this mixed lighting situation. We've got an on-camera flash and we've got all this warm lighting in the background. So again, with our 4 foundational elements, the number one thing that we need to adjust here, it's tough. It's between exposure and white balance. I'm going to go with first exposure, our midtones, right? Because we want to make sure that the subject's faces are exposed properly. So I'm going to adjust the exposure a little bit here to make sure that we've got the proper midtones. Now the white point is really important because I don't want to blow out all of these pixels here. When we adjust the exposure, that might push some of those pixels to pure white, which is going to mean there's no detail. So I want to pull the white point back a little bit. Again, I'm also going to adjust the highlights a little bit, which is that area between the white point and the midtones. So we can adjust the highlights a little bit to make sure things aren't too hot here. So first, we've really adjusted the midtones, but then that took me to a place where I needed to make sure that the white point wasn't too hot. Now I want to adjust the white balance. So when we use the white balance dropper, I've seen some people misuse this as well and click on the wrong type of thing. Just in simple terms, click on something that should be neutral. That's all. So if it's something that's white, it means it shouldn't be red or shouldn't be yellow. So we're going to click on something that should be neutral. Now, when we click on something that should be neutral, look what's happened. It took away our white point. So now, again, with those 4 fundamental things, we need to remember that it's not just simply a process of 1, 2, 3, 4 and done. You really need to reevaluate as you adjust each of those sliders. So we adjusted the white balance and that took away our white point. So I'm going to adjust the whites again, adjust the highlights again, maybe add a little bit of contrast here. And I'm also adjusting the white point. And I'm also adjusting the midtones. I'm just checking the midtones real quick. Now, some people might think that this yellow background is too much, oversaturated, and we could edit that if we want to. Again, this is going from fundamentals to decorating, but it's okay. I just want to use this as an example. We can go to the HSL tool where we can adjust things like oversaturated areas of our image. HSL just stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. So hue refers to the color that we're actually looking at. Saturation is the intensity of that color, and then luminance is the brightness of that color. So in our situation, let's just say we want to reduce the saturation of these oranges in the background. We're going to click on the saturation tab, and then we're going to click on this little icon to bring out the tool that allows us to edit those sections. So if we just click and drag here, we'll just go a little bit, just bringing down that intensity. Okay, so we've dealt with sort of a standard portrait. We've also dealt with a mixed lighting situation. Let's take a look at this image. All right, now the first thing that needs attention to me in this image is the white point. We've got a bouquet here. We've got the bride's skin that looks a little bit blown out. So I want to address that first. So I'm going to take a look at the whites. I'm going to hold Option and click and bring this down a little bit and see what happens. So I'm going to adjust the white point. I'm going to adjust the whites and the highlights together in effort to try to retrieve some of this detail. And then obviously the bride's skin, we want to make sure that we have detail on her skin as well. So we're adjusting the white point first. Now the black point, let's check the black point. We don't have a pure black point quite yet. As I drag this to the left, we start to see an area down here in the shadows. That's okay. But really, we've got this high contrast lighting. I want to bring up the shadows a little bit just to open up their faces and expose their faces a little bit better. I'm going to use the exposure in addition to that. So we're working back and forth here, trying to find a good balance. Now look what's happened. As I've adjusted for the midtones and the shadows, I've kind of lost my black point again. So I'm going to adjust the black point back a little bit more. I might add a little bit of clarity to this. And then finally, I'm going to adjust the white balance. Just going to warm that up a little bit. Again, to your liking. So there you have it, the 4 fundamentals of image editing that I think every photographer should know. adjusting for your white point, your black point, your midtones, and your white balance, but also knowing how to read your histogram. I hope that this has been helpful. Obviously, there is a lot more to editing images in Lightroom. This is just a starting point that I hope helps you understand the tools that we have in Lightroom and what we need to focus on first. If you have more questions, by all means, fire away. Ask me those questions. I love helping photographers succeed. And if there's some way that I can help you understand Lightroom or editing better, just let me know. Take care, and I'll see you next time.